Hi, I'm Christian and I'm 43 years old. On February 19, 2025, I died for about 17 minutes. According to the paramedics, they said that my heart stopped for about 17 minutes until it began beating on its own. I know I'm alive today and I'm able to share this story because God has a purpose for me and because I was surrounded by angels that saved my life that day. First by my wife and my daughter, then by the first responder, paramedics and the doctors, and the nurses at the hospitals, but also by so many prayer warriors who pray for me day and night and continue to pray for full recovery. I have a story to share, and I'm incredibly grateful for this second chance. I hope my experience can inspire others to keep going no matter what they're facing. Let me take you back to February 18. It was a normal night. I was playing with my Oculus VR in the garage. Yes, I know it looks funny when someone's in VR, but it was my new daily cardio trying to be healthier, Normally I stay up late, but that night I went to bed a little bit earlier next to my wife, Bridget. And that's the last thing I remember between February 18 and February 24. Bridget told me the full story little by little. So this happened around 4:15 a.m. on February 19 while sleeping. Bridget heard me gasping for air. She turned on the lights and she saw my face turning blue, then purple, so she called 911 right away. While giving me mouth-to-mouth, she called my daughter Emily to the room, and Emily started giving me chest compressions until a police officer came as first responder. Thank God he was super close in the area and took less than 5 minutes to show up to our door. Then paramedics and firefighters also came. The police officer had taken over the CPR, and then the paramedic started shocking me with the defibrillator to restart my heart. Bree was worried because they told her that they weren't finding a pulse, but they keep doing the resuscitation and shocking me until they got my heart to beat again. However, they said my heart was too weak, so they rushed me to the ER.
We'll just swing it this way.
They loaded me into the ambulance and my family followed to Pomona Valley Hospital. First they took me to the emergency room and soon they checked me into the CICU. Bree stayed by my side, offering me all the love and care she could under those circumstances. I was in an induced coma with tubes, cables, and needles all over my body keeping me alive. The doctors and nurses had started a procedure called Target Temperature Management, or TTM, also known as a therapeutic hypothermia. It's a medical treatment used to protect the brain and improve recovery after a cardiac arrest, especially when the patient is unconscious, like I was. This is a very sensitive and meticulous procedure that involves tubes plugging into my body, infusing liquids to control my body temperature, keeping my internal temperature cold while my external temperature stay warm. The staff at Pomona Hospital were very cautious and they did an excellent job performing this delicate procedure. Bree said I was shaking the whole time. The nurses said it was not normal for me to shake so much, but the procedure was extremely necessary and it would have to be at least 48 hours. But they ended up extending it to 72 hours. I learned that when the heart stops, blood flow to the brain stops too, which can cause brain cells to begin dying quickly. Even after the heart is restarted, there's a risk of further brain injury due to inflammation and chemical imbalances as blood rushes back in. By cooling the body to a controlled temperature, usually around 32 to 36 degrees or 89.6, 96.8 Fahrenheit for a set period, the medical team gives your brain a better chance to recover with less damage. So in short, they use TTM to protect my brain while my body recovered from the trauma of the cardiac arrest. It's a powerful tool in saving not just lives but quality of life too, and it made a real difference in my recovery. My family was still worried because it was very possible that my brain was damaged and they did not know what to expect. Once the TTM was completed, they performed a CT scan of my head and an angiogram to check my veins for any blockages, but there was no blockages. However, the CT scan showed a tumor on the left side of my brain. It's about 3 centimeters, which explained the hearing loss in my left ear over the years. My family dropped in tears as they did not know what to expect at that point. But thankfully, after further testing, it was determined that the tumor is benign, and after monitoring, they confirmed I wasn't having seizures. So it was not an issue with my brain. What I have is an acoustic coma. It's a benign non-cancerous tumor that develops on the vestibulocochlear nerve, which is responsible for hearing and balance. But the doctor's advised I'll need to follow up with a neurologist once my heart condition improves. Bridget shared that every night on her way home, she would break down in tears, overwhelmed by not being at the hospital with me, and sad to know that I was not going to be there with her at home. And that uncertainty was hurting her too much. That breaks my heart. Thankfully, one of the incredible kind nurses at Pomona Hospital, Margot, she went above and beyond her duties. Not only she cared for me with compassion, but she also kept Bree updated on my condition, which brought her so much comfort and relief. I am also deeply grateful to my sister MJ and my in-laws. They flew in from Costa Rica right away. They were a pillar of strength for my girls, offering them love and support when they needed it most. Bridget also shared how many people from our church, along with friends and family, took the time out of their busy schedules to visit me while I was unconscious. They supported her and my daughter in so many ways, offering help, guidance, and simply being there for them. I feel incredibly grateful and comfort knowing that my family was supported, surrounded by so much love and care during such a difficult time. We would write Bible verses every day on the sticky notes and would bring them over to hang them on a wall at my hospital room. After a few days, once the TTM was over, the medical team slowly began to reduce the sedation to make an attempt to wake me up. But I started moving too much and kind of got out of control. They said I was trying to sit up or stand from the bed, so the nurses had to restrain me up to the bed to prevent me from hurting injuries. Bree says I was moving so much that it took 4 nurses to hold me down while they tied me up and sedate me again. Then they needed to wait 24 hours to start the process again. 24 hours later, they tried to wake me up again. But since my hearing is very bad, I could not hear the doctors asking me to squeeze their hand, and they advised that I was not responding. But Bree was there to instruct them and told them they needed to talk louder on my right ear. So she did it herself and demonstrated that I was responding by squeezing their hand. They would ask me to move my feet also, and I was able to quickly react on my right side, but my left side would take longer to react. But I did. So they continued waking me up little by little. Once appropriate, they asked everyone to leave the room so they could remove some of the tubes I had in my mouth, going down my throat and my nose. Now, this part I'm going to share, it's a little emotional because I was very confused at the moment. But at some point, I remember hearing a calm tune, like music, like a celestial keyboard on the background, and then female voices speaking to me in Spanish, my native language, asking me to be calm in Spanish. Tranquilo, mi amor. Tranquilo, papi. Tranquilo, manito. Among other things, instructing me not to move and to stay still. While the voices appeared to be smooth and very calming, at the same time I was confused. I didn't understand why I was hearing those voices. I thought maybe I was kidnapped or something like that. I could not recognize their accent, and that made me afraid to a certain level. It felt almost like an out-of-body experience, but just with voices in a deep black void without a body. It was not until weeks later, after I came out of the hospital, that Bree told me that when the doctors were reducing the sedation to wake me up, she, my daughter, and my sister were talking to me close to my right ear, and she repeated the phrases they were telling me. I had immediate flashbacks, kind of deja vus. I burst in tears as the memories came back, and I can now reproduce the moments and the voices in my head. But now knowing who voices I was hearing, I cannot explain the feeling, but I'm so glad that I can remember now and that the confusion is gone. I love them for so much love they gave me and so much faith they had, that I was listening and that God was going to wake me up from that state. As I opened my eyes, I remember suddenly hearing, Christian, can you hear me? Do you know where you are? Do you know what happened to you? I heard a doctor saying. Yes, I could hear the doctor asking these questions, but I did not know the answer to the other ones. He said, Christian, you're in Pomona Valley Hospital CICU. You suffered a cardiac arrest while sleeping a few days ago. Your daughter gave you CPR and saved your life. That statement hit me so hard I couldn't hold myself, and I screamed, no. I was screaming, crying deep inside my soul. I was just so sad to learn that my daughter saw me dying and that she kept pumping my heart. I couldn't stop crying, and I was asking to see my daughter, but she was not there at the moment. She was on her way, and I was getting just way too anxious, so they gave me medication to control my anxiety, as this was not good for my heart. At first, I only recognized my sister. I was so happy to see her. I would cry and be happy at the same time. Then I kept looking at Bridget, but I didn't recognize her right away. Bree said I thought she was Emily, and I said, Emily, mi amor. But she told me, I'm not Emily, but don't worry, mi amor. She's on her way. And right there, I recognized her and cried, and she was hugging me. Bree said she didn't tell me right up front who she was, because she wanted me to recognize her on my own, as she knew I was barely waking up and the drugs were coming off. So I was expected to be very confused, and the medical team suggested it was a good exercise to let me figure things out on my own. Now, the good news was that I was able to wake up from the induced coma, and I was able to breathe on my own, so that's why they were able to remove some of the tubes and cables to perform the MRI on my brain, which also came back clear. No evident brain damage found. I was barely able to talk as my throat was sore from the tubes they had removed, but thanks God I was able to breathe on my own, and they were able to take them out, because otherwise they would have to open a hole in my neck to bypass my mouth and nose, but I did not need to go through that. I was able to talk, but I had a hoarse voice still. Little by little, my memories came back to me, but it was a process. They would ask me where I lived, and I would mention Santa Ana, Costa Rica, and that's where I lived 20 years ago. My wife would ask me if I remember what car I have, and I would mention my car from 20 years ago. Basically, I reloaded memories from that time. They would challenge me to try and remember more recent details, and avoided tipping me off right away. But with little hints, I started remembering more and more. The first night after waking up, Bree was there with me all night, and I kept waking her up, asking her to assist me. She needed to use a vacuum pipe to remove the flames produced by my lungs and throat when coughing almost every 10 minutes. And I would ask her to give me ice chips. That helped me reduce the uncomfortable feeling of my dry throat. Since I was in coma and then medicated at the Pomona Hospital, I only have very few memories of my time there. In a way, it's perhaps better that I don't recall some of the procedures. It would be nice to have memories of all the medical team that took care of me. I'm glad that Bree was able to tell me so many details and names that I keep in my heart. But I do remember one of the nurses, the one who took care of me for the last couple of days I was there. I was shocked to learn her name is Faith. I don't believe that was a coincidence. She was kind, very kind, and very patient with me. At first in my head, I thought I was at the same hospital all the time. But in short, up until this point, the medical team at the Pomona Valley CICU hospital took care of me and my body until I was stabilized and in good condition to start my recovery. Then I was first transferred to Ontario Kaiser Permanente Hospital for a day. And then the next day I was moved to Fontana Kaiser Permanente. That part of my journey is mostly a blur. I was likely still deeply sedated. I have only vague, hazy memories of being transported by paramedics. It's a strange feeling knowing I was moving through the world while being so disconnected from it. Looking back, it reminds me just how fragile and surreal those days were. At Fontana Kaiser Hospital, the team ran several heart exams and kept me under close observation. Since my brain function looked good and my daily blood tests continued to show positive results, they decided to perform an MRI of my heart to check for any blocked arteries. Thankfully, everything came back clear. There were no clogs or major issues. However, they did find a couple of scars, like dark marks on my heart, but they couldn't fully explain. The doctors mentioned that I may have experienced previous, less severe cardiac events in the past, or possibly a viral infection like a cold or even COVID. But ultimately, they couldn't pinpoint the exact cause of the scarring, the arrhythmia, or the cardiac arrest. The next few days were still a blur. My mind was scattered, bouncing between sadness, confusion, gratitude, and even moments of joy. It truly felt like an emotional roller coaster. I experienced vivid hallucinations and deeply disturbing nightmares that shook me to my core. My behavior wasn't myself either. I was irritable, getting upset over small, meaningless things. Bridget and Emily were worried. They were afraid that I might stay that way. During one of my dreams, or perhaps it was an hallucination while I was unconscious, I had a vision that deeply disturbed me. I saw a place that I instinctively identified as Pakistan. I don't know why. Completely reduced to dust and rubble. I saw lifeless babies all over the place, animals devouring each other. It was a horrifying scene. And just when I thought it was over, the vision would shift. I would see something peaceful, lush green mountains and horses running wild and free. But then, without warning, the nightmare would repeat itself, cycling back to the destruction. That constant loop was tormenting. At the time, I honestly believed the MRI machine was somehow behind these images. I remember its loud, rhythmic noises so vividly that I thought they were being used as part of some emotional, psychological testing procedure. I kept telling myself, this can't be real, something's wrong with my head. Looking back now, I believe these visions were my brain's way of processing the trauma I was going through. The destruction I saw wasn't really about a specific place. It was symbolic of what was happening inside me. My body had shut down, my heart had stopped, my mind lost between consciousness and oblivion, created this surreal imagery to reflect the chaos and vulnerability I was experiencing. The contrast, the moments of beauty with the horses and mountains, was like a message of hope. It whispered that healing was still possible, that beyond the devastation there was still life, still peace, still something to return to. It was terrifying, yes, but it also became one of the most symbolic parts of my journey. It reminded me that even when we are surrounded by darkness, light can still break through. And sometimes our mind paints pictures that words could never fully describe. Now, one day my sister Maria Jose, she overheard a nurse discussing my medications and caught the name Seroquel. Typically prescribed for severe brain disorders like schizophrenia, her ears immediately perk up because her father-in-law, who had recently passed away from Alzheimer's, had been on that same drug. She had seen firsthand how it affected him, and when she compared my behavior to what she had witnessed with him, it raised a red flag. Concerned, she and my wife approached the nurse and asked that the medication be stopped. Thankfully, the staff listened, and the next scheduled dose, around 8 p.m. the following evening, was withheld. That night, MJ stayed by my side, and around 10 p.m., I began talking with her. And suddenly she looked at me with the biggest smile and said, "Manito, you're back." She could hear it in my voice. I was speaking normally again. That's when we knew it had been the medication. After that moment, the terrifying hallucinations and feelings of paranoia vanished. Not long after, just a couple of days later, I slowly began to regain my strength. I was finally able to get out of bed and sit in a chair. I remember thinking it would be easy, but even just standing up straight with the help of a walker, it took several tries. The nurses were incredibly kind and supportive, gently encouraging me to take walks around the hospital floor. Step by step, I started coming back to life, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too. Once I began showing state improvement, the cardiologist recommended implanting a device in my chest called Implantable Cardioverter Defibrillator, or ICD. This small device has wires or leads that are threaded into my heart and continuously monitor my heart's electrical activity. If the ICD detects a dangerous arrhythmia, such as a rhythm that's too fast, too slow, or irregular, it can respond in two main ways. For less severe rhythm issues, it can deliver small pacing pulses to guide the heart back to normal. For life-threatening rhythms, or if my heart stops again, it can deliver a stronger life-saving shock to restart it. The device also uploads data wirelessly to a secure cloud system on a regular basis, allowing my cardiologist to track my heart's activity remotely and be alerted to any concerning changes. Knowing all this, I didn't hesitate. I agreed to the procedure without a second thought. They explained that the assigned surgeon only worked at that hospital 2 days a week, so scheduling the procedure typically took some time. Before moving forward, they needed to perform another MRI, which was done on a Wednesday. Once they had the results, they sent them to the Los Angeles Kaiser Permanente the following day. That was a Thursday. That's to see if the surgery could be scheduled at the Fontana location. Otherwise, I would have needed to be transferred to LA, since the local surgeon's schedule for the week was already full. But then something unexpected and truly kind happened. Dr. Singh personally reviewed my case. He arranged for the surgery to take place the very next day, right there at the Fontana Hospital. Later, I learned from the nurses that Dr. Singh had actually come in his day off to perform not only my surgery, but also another patient. That level of dedication and compassion left a deep impression on me. On Friday, as the nurse was preparing me for surgery, Dr. Singh came in and introduced himself. He told me that my case had personally caught his attention, not just because of the circumstances, but because we were born the same year. He's just a few months older than me, and he said we needed to get Christian back home with his family. I was gently awakened just as they were finishing sealing the incision in my chest where the implantable device had been placed. After the surgery, Dr. Singh explained that the procedure had become a bit more complex than expected. During the operation, he discovered a rare congenital condition. My heart still has 2 lead veins flowing into it, a malformation that occurs in less than 1% of the population. He explained that during fetal development, all babies have 2 lead veins, but normally they fuse into one as we grow. In my case, they never did. It's not something that typically causes problems, but it did make the placement of the device leads more challenging. Still, he was able to work around it, and the surgery was a success. Just a couple hours later, a specialist from the Biotronic team, who had assisted during the surgery, came by to run a series of follow-up tests to confirm the ICD was functioning correctly. He walked me through how the device works, gave me important instructions, and ultimately gave me the green light for me to be discharged and continue my recovery at home. Bree and Emily were there for me both before and after the surgery, and they were ready to bring me home. As we left the hospital, I remember feeling a wave of joy, just seeing the outside world. It was right at sunset. The sky was painted with beautiful colors, but even in that moment of beauty, I felt disoriented. Although I could recall my exact home address, I couldn't recognize any of the streets we'd passed on the drive. Even though I've known this area for years, it was unsettling, especially as we got closer to home. When we finally arrived and opened the door to our house, I was met with an emotional surprise. My in-laws, my sister-in-law, my nephew, They were all there waiting, smiling, holding balloons, and ready to welcome me back. It was a simple gesture, but in that moment it meant the world to me. A reminder of the love and support that surrounded me through everything. Little by little, I've been recovering. Now I'm able to walk around. Just the stairs get me pretty exhausted. And sometimes right after eating, I get really tired and dizzy. But that is all normal after almost a month of not walking or eating normal. Bree helped me piece together the timeline of everything that happened, and along the way, she shared how many people came to see me, pray for me, and supported her and Emily through those difficult days. Friends from church, my pastors, family members, my in-laws, and my sister who flew in from Costa Rica all show up with love. Some of my extended family even created a WhatsApp group where they gathered twice a day to pray for me while I was in the hospital. And even now they continue to meet daily to lift others in prayer. My church also organized a meal train, and for the first 2 weeks after I came home, we received dinner every night. That simple act of kindness meant so much. The care, the compassion, it was overwhelming in the best way. I receive messages, phone calls, and visits from friends and family now that I'm awake. And the love I've felt is beyond words. It fills my heart with joy, reminds me that I've been helped by a community that truly cares. I have one more experience I want to share before I wrap this up. While I was in coma at Pomona Hospital, a chaperone, Pastor Daniel, came by my bed and prayed for me and my family. They said that his presence was something special. But then he came back to see me when I was already awake. As soon as he walked into the room, I greeted him by name, and I knew who he was. I said, "Pastor Daniel," with a smile in my face. My father-in-law later shared with me that he was amazed about that because I was in coma the first time he came, and he didn't understand how I could have known or remember his name, but somehow I did. In that visit, his prayer, his words of wisdom encouraged me to make this message and share it because I'm confident that God put all those people around me to comfort my spirit and help me heal my heart and my soul. Weeks after I was sent home, I called Pastor Daniel and he remembered me and my family. He wrapped up our conversation joyfully saying, "Brother, live a life with purpose," and that is exactly what I intend to do. To all the incredible nurses and doctors at Pomona Hospital and Kaiser Permanente, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your skill, compassion, and dedication were nothing short of life-saving. I truly believe my miracle would not have been possible without each one of you. I'm also deeply grateful to the Chino police officers, the firefighters, the paramedics who responded that day. You were the first hands of help when I needed it most, and I carry a deep sense of gratitude for your courage and quick action. Thank you for giving me another chance to live life. I will never forget what you did for me. God bless you all. Thanks for watching.